Welcome back to the Ethereum Adventure, building a game on the blockchain part 4. So where are we up to? In the last tutorial we completed most of the character and class structures, but didn't quite address coins or skills. This time we will work on the skills and also start looking at adding a combat engine so we can perform attacks. Now I just want to point out that coins are essentially just going to inevitably be tokens, so we have some sort of cryptocurrency that we can actually trade as part of this game. So I'm going to do that in the very later part of the tutorials because I've covered cryptocurrency quite a few times in other tutorials. So this is basically where we were last time. We just finished most of the character and class as previously mentioned. We hadn't addressed anything to do with skills, but we hadn't also really looked at any way to sorry, pardon me, need some refreshment. But we hadn't actually looked at any way we could perform an attack or sort of attack another character. So let's kind of look at that today. So we're going to isolate the whole sort of skill aspect, and we're going to look at creating a combat engine. But before we can create a combat engine, we need to rethink character, because character was very generalized to a player. But we're also, if you cast your mind back to the very first part of these tutorials or part of this series, we looked at the whole concept of non-playable characters as well. So for us to create a sort of a generic combat engine where we can attack playable characters and non-playable characters, we need to also make that definition between the two characters. So we need to add a new layer. So we're going to create playable character and non-playable character under the character layer. Pardon me. And we're going to have to first look at splitting up character in the most generalized way possible. Now I thought, what is applicable to both character and non-playable character? Well, pretty much everything in character apart from coins. So that was a very easy split and very easy decision from me. But we also need to factor in a couple of little things for non-playable character. This will expand as we go. But to begin with, I thought, okay, what's the standard thing you'll get when you defeat a non-playable character? Well, they'll drop items or gold or something. So I thought, okay, so playable characters can have coins and non-playable character can have an array of items it can drop. And that was as simple as I could think of as just to create that separation between them. Now you're probably thinking of other things in the character list that's not really that generic or not really specific to character or non-playable character. For instance, why would a non-playable character have experience? Well, it actually has experience, but in a different term. So for a playable character, experience means how much experience have I got in that current level, whereas a non-playable character, experience means how much experience will the playable character gain for defeating me. So I generalized experience in that term, and everything else should be applicable, even including class, because we have to classify our non-playable character as well. So for instance, you would want a baseline stat for a troll versus a baseline stat for a warlock, just as an example. Now we've kind of covered that, we also need to kind of look now of how we're going to do the calculations for the combat engine. So the combat engine needs some rules for basically our basic interactions, our basic stat modifications. So we need to define our combat rules based off our attributes. So let's have a look. Let's break those down into the simple attributes of strength, intelligence, and agility. Strength will be a primary statistic for physical damage, as well as a defensive statistic for defense of physical damage. Intelligence, similar to strength, intelligence would be our primary statistic for magical damage, as well as the defensive stat for magical damage. And finally, agility, this is a unique statistic which will act as a critical multiplier and base damage for all damage, but also an avoidance statistic for all defense, should I say. So this is the basic rules that I've come up with. It will probably need some tweaking and modification. People might think, oh, that's slightly imbalanced and so forth. It probably is. I haven't fully tested a massive range of combat attacks yet. I've just taken just a few and just seen what the output result is, which is also why we need to tweak the characters' health and mana pools, because they're a bit too low. But I've broken it obviously down into physical and magical damage. So for physical, we'll use the calculation of maximum damage is equal to the attacker's strength times 2 plus the attacker's agility, and that's the attack aspect of it. And in fact, I probably should have highlighted the last part in red because that's our critical multiplier. Or I say critical multiplier, it's our additional critical damage. And then finally, it's the defense agility times 2. Sorry, it's then detracting the defense agility times 2 plus the defense strength. And then finally at the end, we're going to apply a critical multiplier. So we're just adding some extra some extra damage based off the character's agility divided by 4. So for instance, if you've got 4 agility, we add an extra 1 damage as a critical strike. So if you've got a large amount of agility, it's going to be a much larger value. Now, I was debating whether that critical strike should apply every time, but like I say, this is our first iteration, so we'll probably refine this as we go. Finally, for magical, we'll have the maximum damage equals the attack intelligence times 2 plus the attack agility plus the spell bonus damage minus the defense agility times 2 plus the defense intellect, because obviously intellect is going to be our defense against magic, whereas strength is going to be our defense against physical. So let's try and apply this. So let's jump into our code. Now, last time we were pretty much here. I've made a couple of modifications. So for instance, I've already created the stubs for the non-playable character and the playable character. I've not added anything to either of these for now, and I'm not going to. I'll add something to them later. For instance, like I said, I need to add that definition of a coin as well as adding the definition of a item. So we've got our classes here. We've got the rogue, the warrior and the wizard, but I'm also going to create a new class. In fact, I'm just going to copy one of the old ones and rename it to troll. And our troll is going to have, I don't know, 50 health, no mana because it's a troll, and because this is a troll, it's going to have a base stat of, I think if I remember rightly, let's just quickly bring up the class, it was agility, intelligence, strength. So our troll is going to have 2 agility, no intelligence, and let's just say 2 strength because they're pretty weak beings. I know this might change as we go, but we'll leave that as for now. We also need to go into our rogue and modify our hit point pools. So the health needs to go up considerably for all classes. So actually, we'll start this as a baseline. A rogue can have 150 health. A warrior can have 200 health because he's pretty chunky. And a wizard can have 100 health. Just to make things subtly even. We're going to have to tweak this as we go. As anyone who's ever worked on a game engine knows, to create a balance across classes, things need tweaking a lot. Which is also why I made them separate contracts, so if we wanted to change or tweak a class in our game, we actually can. We can modify the classes by just switching them in and out. So our classes were never physically divided. If, for instance, if we thought, no, we don't feel like the base stats for a wizard are fair, we can change them in the game itself by just simply adding the class and overwriting the existing class, and then the whole game is actually updated as well. So just to keep things nice and fair. So now we've made those modifications to our classes, we need to also create some sort of skills as well, because if you remember rightly from the slide, skills were bonus damage for our magical ability. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to add a new spell. I just call it attack. Now, in our spell, we also need our standard definition. So if I bring up the PowerPoint as well, we're basically going to have name, level required, damage, and class. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Pardon me. I feel like I'm a little bit run down today. Okay, so let's just start with the basics. We had a string, which was private, and it's going to be name. We're going to have string no we're not, we're going to have a uint private, and we're going to have level required. And we have uint private damage, and I forgot what the last thing was. Last thing was class. Okay, and uint class. So we can first just import class.sol, and now we need to create some getters and setters for these. And in fact, I don't want any setters, I just want getters. So let's create a function, get name, make it public, make it a view, make it returns string, and then simply return name. Same for the others, private, function, get level required, public, view, returns. It'd be great if I might even have a look at some point of actually creating a Visual Code plugin to do boilerplating attributes, so getters and setters for boilerplating. So get level required, return level required, function get damage, public view returns uint, return damage, function get class, public view returns class. Okay, so that's our basic structure, and now we just need a constructor for it. And this is going to just simply take a name, a level required, a damage. In fact, I need to make sure I type in all these. Level required is uint, damage is also a uint, and class. In fact, for class, I'm going to make it a string. I also need to define class correctly as well. Get rid of that. And we can make it public. And simply name is equal to name. Level required is equal to level required. Damage is equal to damage. Finally, class is equal to class. Okay, why is it complaining with all there? Ah, yes. Make sure we add our memories. Okie dokie. So that's our spell structure set up. We can now do some basic things, or we can basically create our spells now. So attack is just going to be, remember the name, remember it right, it's going to have the name of attack. It's going to have, I think it was level required next, wasn't it? So 1, and damage is just going to be a baseline of 1, and class required all, because all classes are going to have the ability to do an attack. Just make sure that I have got those right. Name, level required, damage, attack, yeah, so that's fine. Backstab, slightly different. Now this is going to be a backstab. It's going to be a rogue. It's going to be available from level 1, but the damage is going to be, look at this, 10. Yeah, we'll just throw it as 10 for now. Now cleave. Ah, we actually missed something here as well. So I've realised that there's no way we've defined any mana cost. So uint private mana cost. Let's chuck it in here as well. Uint mana cost. In fact, I just want to move some stuff around. I like having the strings together and the integers together. So let's go in here, let's go in there. This is going then finally so correct that. I get mana cost because we need some way to distinguish how much a spell's costing us. Okay, get mana cost, and that should return a unit. Okie dokie. So let's first go back to attack. Let's move the class to the first parameter, and the cost of it is going to be 0. So it's backstab. Let's move the rogue around to the second position, and the cost of backstab. Ooh, what should we have? Let's have 2. They've got a little bit. Of mana. Rogues have, so yeah, I think 2 is quite fair. Then cleave. That's the next thing that we're going to do. Let's just copy and paste this. Cleave. It is for a warrior. The damage it's going to do, it's not going to do too much because warriors have quite good physical damage to begin with. So let's just give them a 6, and the mana cost as well. We'll leave it as 2. We don't want them just spamming spells because they're warriors. And then finally, a fireball. It's going to be for a wizard. It's a wizard's fireball, so it's going to do 15 damage. Big one. And should we make it? No, we'll not penalise wizards. We'll keep everyone's spells costing 2. So it's kind of fair across the board because wizards aren't that strong to begin with. Okay, so now we've defined our spells. So we've got some basic spells for each class as well as a basic attack. Right, so that's all that defined. In fact, I'm going to make it nice and clean like the others. I've probably not saved a few of these files, so I'll need to remember to do that. Alright, so save, 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 and those are our spells done. So we have a new class for Troll. We have a set of characters. We have now playable and non-playable character split. We have our spells defined. We have a base for our spells, and yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to there. We need also some way to store the spells against the classes as well, or the characters, should I say. Oh no, sorry, it is the classes. So let's just go into class a second. And we don't actually have any spells. Now, I think I've always referred to these as skills, have I? Yeah, I've referred to them as skills. Why did I create them as spells? Let's just rejiggle this, shall we? F2, skill. F2, skills. And then let's just change all this. So, can't believe I've done all that as spells this whole time. Skill, 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 skill. Skill and skill. Okay. Excellent. Right, so we've got our skills. Now in classes, our class needs an array of skills. Int private skill private skills. And we also need to import that. So skill.sol, and there we go. We have our array of skills. Now I'm just thinking of a way of adding the skills to the class. I might create this as a separate function. Add skills. Public. I kind of want to add it at this level. Tricky. No, I thought of a better way of doing this actually. Let's just see if this actually works. Let's make this protected. It's not actually protected, is it? I forgot what it is in Solidity. I don't know how to program anymore. I think it's internal, isn't it? Cast my mind back to my own tutorials on what the private, public, and protected is. I think internal is protected, or acts similarly to protected. We'll go with it for now. If not, I might have to make it public. I don't know if I should be doing that though. Either way, let's then go into our rogue, and then let's add a constructor to the rogue. Public, and then simply skills dot. For the love of me, cannot remember how to do an array in Solidity. I'm pretty sure it's push or add, isn't it? It's push. Push new. Okay, this is actually, I'm a bit concerned about how many. Actually, no, this should be okay. Push new attack. My only concern is if I want to modify attack, I'm gonna have to. Yeah. For now, I'll leave it as this. But I need to define a singular place for where I instantiate attack and all the skills. But for now, I'll just do it as I'm kind of doing here. So this needs to go up to skills, and then into attack dot sol, and then skills push as well, backstab. Okay, hopefully that should work. I've not actually tried this, so we'll find out when we do a quick test compile in a minute. See if this works, because we've got a double layer of constructor. Because the constructor should be called there when we construct the class, I'm hoping that this also gets constructed too. Hope. I think I know what I'm doing. Here's hoping to everyone else I actually know what I'm doing. So the troll is simply just going to require the attack ability. It's not going to have anything else. Let's just make sure that it can access that class. The warrior and the wizard can require attack as well as their skills. Let's just go in and add some of the spells I'll need. So the wizard is going to need fireball, and the warrior is going to need cleave. Attack, fireball, wizard, cleave. Troll is a standard attack, and rogue is, yeah, a backstab. So I've added those. I probably feel like I should maybe split them out into separate folders as well. Non-playable classes versus playable classes, but not create any layer between the two. I don't feel like there's a need for it, but this might change in the future. So let's just first to see if this actually compiles. Let's just go into the Solidity folder, truffle test. Let's first see if we have any errors. Probably will do. Come on, compiler. Everything compiles. Oh, we have some errors. Here we go. Warning: function state mutability can be restricted to pure on attack. Can it? Let's have a look. Combat engine. Oh, ignore me. I actually created a stub combat engine when I was playing around with this. And in fact, what I'm going to do is let's change it to pure and return 0. I'll go into that in a minute. In fact, I wanted to get rid of that when I was thinking it through. Let's just test again just to see if this works now. So yeah, I actually did create a stub combat engine. I've been playing around with a few things. Okay, so wrong argument count for function combat engine. Yes, sorry. In the game, I also created the combat engine instantiation too. See if that works. Right, what was the error this time? Oh, the error this time is I wasn't running Ganache. So hopefully if this works, it should, come on Ganache, wake up. It should at least run and basically give us that validity that the application we've done so far is correct. So let's just see if this all compiles. Come on, fingers crossed. Come on, yes, okay, we're good. Now let's go back to the game, and we're going to have the ability to attack. So let's add a attack mechanism to the game. Now this is probably something I will redefine. Let's just state function attack, and this is going to be a character make it public. It's going to modify things on the actual blockchain itself, so it's not going to return anything, and it's going to return a uint. Let's just see what damage we did to this character. Now I probably will define and sort of isolate the mechanisms a little bit more as we go. Now for instance, I'm not going to have attack a character in the game. I'm going to have it at a lower level, something else we can interact elsewhere. But for now we're going to have the combat engine dot attack, and we're going to be the attacker. So let's just define ourselves as the attacker. And then we're going to have the character that we're going to be attacking, and that's going to return a uint in itself, just going to show us the amount of damage that we've done to that character. So I'm just using this more of a test basis rather than implementation. I'm just going to move this towards the end. So in our combat engine, we're on going with functions too. Okay, so let's just go into the combat engine. And attack is going to take in two things. It's going to take in, actually it's going to take in three things. It's going to take in character, attacker, character, defender, and it's also going to take in a spell. Or skill, should I say. Okay, so we need to make sure that we've got a couple of imports there. Character being one and skill being the other. And we also need to add something else to skill, which I've only just realized is going to be a type. So we'll just do this in a very sort of easy way. What I'm going to do is I kind of want to do this at a uint level. Should we do it at a uint level? And also kind of thinking this through, I kind of want to define the classes and skills as enums, so we don't have to reference them by string, we can reference them by numerical value, which just make comparisons a lot cheaper for our gas consumption. So for instance, rather than having a class as one, I mean a class as like a wizard, it's a class of 1. Warrior is not going to be warrior, it's going to be 2, and rogue is going to be 3. Same with the spells. It just means that when we're just checking to see if we're like the right class is executing the right skill, it's correct. And in fact, I am going to do that to this. So uint, that's going to now be a uint. And the class is also going to be a uint. Okay. And in class, we're going to have a class definition as well. So we're going to have a uint, private class, and we're also going to have a uint class here. Class is equal to class. Under get name, we're going to have function, get class, public, view, return, uint. Now, typically I would do this as a string rather than a uint or an integer, but because we have to think of, have to have consideration of cost of the comparisons on the blockchain, I'd rather have them quite cheap. So I was thinking maybe 256, so using a uint 8, but I don't know if then it limits me to be able to expand that going forward. So I'm going to keep it as a uint. It's not too much in cost-wise for a uint versus a uint 8. So, I mean, obviously if I wanted to really optimize it, I would drop it as a uint 8. Then, character, and also skill. Pardon me. Alright, so we also need to import skill as well to this. I need to order these in alphabetical actually as well. There we go. That's all I need to do. It's just OCD. It's not. It's not nothing to do with the actual performance or any sort of code improvements. Now we've got the combat engine. Okay, we've defined our rogue, warrior, and yes. So our rogue is going to be a 3. Warrior is going to be a 1. And a wizard is going to be a 2. Troll is going to be a 4. And in fact, I might want expansion for other classes, so I'm going to make the troll 11. Now, the reason I'm making it 11, it gives me 0 to 10, or 1 to 10, to define my classes. So at the moment I've only got 3 classes, which is fine, but if I want to add more, I can then add its 4, and 5, and 6, and so forth, all the way up to 10. So we've now defined those, that our individual classes have a class number or class numerical value. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Skills. Okay. Now I'm going to define all as 0, so anything with a 0 can be used by all. Rogue, if I remember rightly, was a 3. Warrior was a 1, and wizard was a 2. Okay, excellent. Hopefully that still all works. Let's just do a truffle test to see what happens. Picking up background noise, one of my neighbours is hammering something. Right, so the problem with skill, past contract. I expected semicolon but got an open bracket. Okay, so what did I do wrong there? On skill. Ah, that's what I did wrong there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that should fix that. Okay, I feel like we're making some good progress today. I don't want to really drag this tutorial out too much longer. What I'll do is just simply apply... Ooh, bloody hell, got some errors. Okay, so the first one was warning, unused function parameter, remove character, that's fine. A character... Oh, right, it's just the thing, the function we define. This is all I want to do for the rest of the tutorial today, is let's just do the logic for the combat engine. Did I also define the skill type? No, that was the other thing I was going to do, and that's why I created a uint here. Uint private skill type, because obviously we need to define whether it's a physical attack or a magical. Again, with the same context as class, because I might want expansion for this going forward, I'm going to define it as a uint. And then we're going to have uint skill type, because obviously we want 2 different types of logic for the type of skill that we're going to be doing. Skill type. Okay, and then finally just a function down here. Function get skill type public. It's a view. It returns a uint and returns skill type. Okay. So in the game engine, like I said, we're gonna have some logic here to define the type of attack that we're going to do. Let's just have a quick look again at what we'd had defined. Now, I'm only doing this because I can't remember myself. So the damage, or the maximum damage, I'm actually going to introduce rand to this at some point as well, so we're going to have a minimum and maximum damage. I haven't quite defined that for now, so for now we'll just apply damage. Attacker strength times 2, so for a physical, attacker strength times 2, plus the attacker agility. Let's just start with that for now. So if skill dot get, I think it's skill type, 1 is equal to skill type, because that's going to be our physical. I should probably have these defined up here as well. So private unit private DHY. Physical skill and magical skill, which also reminds me, I don't think I've defined it in there. No, I have not. So that's a physical skill, 1. Attack, backstab is actually going to be magical. Is it? Actually, no, we'll keep it as physical. That is also going to be physical. Cleave and fireball is going to be magical. So I do need to, the same, I can't really come up with a better way of doing the constants. I might revisit that just so I can do the constants a little bit easier. So we can do a comparison now. Physical skill is equal to skill type, just so it's a little bit more readable. Else, we can do an if here. Magical skill is equal to skill dot get skill type. And if not, we just return 0. So, if I remember rightly, it was return. Just do the same sort of parenthesis. Now I know obviously there's that whole times and division order thing, but I always feel that trying to use that in code makes code quite illegible and unreadable, so I try not to do that. Return a different set of results there. So our attacker is going to be attacker dot, whoa, what the hell's happened there? Attacker dot get strength. I should make sure that is an attribute. Should be get strength, yes, excellent. Which is obviously going to go based off the class as well. Times 2 plus attacker dot get agility. So that's our first line of attack, and then minus, I'm going to do this on a new line. What was it? Defender agility times 2 plus defender strength. Defender dot get agility times 2, so that's our avoidance, plus attacker, oh sorry, defender dot get strength. Right, don't really need those because that should be okay. So it'll multiply the strength by 2 first before adding the attack. I know I did say I'd probably put the parenthesis. Alright, go on. I'll do it anyway, just so it's a little bit more readable. And then finally, plus attacker dot get agility times, oh sorry, divided by 4. And that is our physical attack. And then finally the next set, so very similar to our previous, except as get intelligence is it the same? So attack, get intelligence plus agility plus spell bonus, that's where the only difference lies. So get intelligence plus attacker dot get agility plus skill dot get damage minus, we don't have the crit in there. Indentation, you only use 12 indent of spaces. Stop complaining. Operate a white space. There should be a maximum of a single space in there. No comments between right side and... Huh? Ugh, this autoformat, pain in the ass. I don't really like doing these things on one line, it just makes them so illegible. Ignore the fact that it's going to highlight this as an error, ignore it. Alright, so attacker.getIntelligence times 2 plus the attacker.getAgility plus the skill.getDamage, and we're going to minus the attacker.getAgility times 2, which is our avoidance, plus the defender.getIntelligence. Okay, so those should be our skills, and if I'm right, hopefully that'll work. This tutorial is already 40 minutes long so far. I kind of want to do at least a little test around it to see if it works. Okay, so what do we have a problem here? Function declared as view pure. Oh yeah, it's not, definitely not pure. See, hopefully we should get rid of all the errors. I do kind of want to do a little test around this just to see if it works. Okay, so function issue. Oh right, so in the game that can be a view as well. Public view. Okay, so that should have cleaned up all the errors. Now, to test this, I need 2 characters and a skill active. You know what? I'm going to leave the test till the next series, just mostly because, like I said, this is longer than any of the other series I've done so far. We've defined our skills. We've already got a baseline game engine in place. Now, obviously, this is just a very simple one. In all fairness, I'm very tempted to split these out into separate functions just because of the complexity. And then split them up and clean them a little bit better too, but I think I'll leave that till a later tutorial. And also, I need to move these over to safe math rather than just doing all these multiplications, additions, and subtractions, divisions, and so forth, just to make sure that they're executed correctly. But I'll do that as part of the cleanup when I readdress the combat engine in the next tutorial. Now, I hope you found this this tutorial not too drawn out today, and it's hopefully slightly interesting. If you did or find it useful, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, there is a comments box in the down below. If you would like to keep up to date with all the tutorials that I am producing, hit the subscribe button. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.